Today we are joined by Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Sir, first question to you would be as you have a long experience of serving as a Army Commander of the Eastern Command, sir, how grave do you think that the challenges before the Indian Army, as far as infrastructure is concerned, in the eastern border of India along with the China? Because when we look at the Chinese side of the border, there is a huge infrastructure development. They have invested a whole lot of money and time and technology and everything else they have got to build, railroads, roads, advanced landing grounds, and everything else. Are we catching up at a pace that was required, or we are lagging behind?
Look, for quite some years, number of decades initially, we were hesitant to develop infrastructure on the northeast side for the fear that it may be possibly utilized by the Chinese if they come for offensive. Taking our mind back to 62. So we lost number of decades for it. And we were not maintaining also as well. The border roads had less amount of money, which was the major agency doing work out there. So I think we lost that battle for development of northeastern infrastructure substantially. Now there are additional funds available. There is movement across there, but I personally feel it is not substantive, and we need to work better. And we need to do some kind of a mission to sort out the infrastructure of all kinds. There would be bridges. So there's a talk of making a tunnel under the Brahmaputra, because if you to make a tunnel, you connect both sides. You're not dependent on floods and all that. So there is so many, and the roads. If the posts are air maintained all the time, and air maintenance depends on the weather, it's all very disadvantageous. So we have to get the infrastructure. To answer you shortly, I think we are weak. We are weak, and we need to sort this out. And we need to take it seriously forward to develop roads and tracks, and of ALGs or helipads or bridges across the major rivers, so that we have a good infrastructure to support our forces. If we wish to do something credible, and we think Chinese have to be deterred, which is a philosophy that we have to deter them, then we have to create roads and infrastructure in a way that they get deterred, that we mean business across. Presently, it would give an impression that we are more defensive and he can roll down on us. So I would say that we need to get on with it. The present mode is too slow.
Moving forward, recently we have seen that China has increased its influence in Bangladesh, Myanmar, and they have also been trying to surpass India by getting involved with negotiations or dialogue with Bhutan also, directly without involving India. When we all know that the diplomacy of Bhutan goes through Delhi, but they have surpassed that. So is it a matter of concern, and if so, how much?
Yeah, see, I will agree with you that they have, like I mentioned, deep pockets. So they can purchase influence in many forms. What you said, the construction of the road that starts from Roili, Yunnan, across to Bay of Bengal through Myanmar has given immense amount of employment, immense amount of money power to Myanmar. So they would be thrilled about it. Some people say that part of the Rohingya problems is because of the infrastructure being created through Myanmar. I would follow it similarly in Bangladesh. See, Bangladesh has developed the SCZ concept well, which is actually taken from Chinese, because the labor now is cheaper in Bangladesh than it's in China. So the China now develops the SCZs in Bangladesh, and they start importing. Because earlier it used to be, say, $200 a year you get a worker in China. Nowadays the worker is becoming expensive. So they come across to Bangladesh, they build the SCZ, they build a container depot at Chittagong Harbour. They would say that we require the depot at Chittagong Harbour for a particular reason, but actually it implies that there will be plenty of Chinese located there. And similarly is true for to Bhutan. Now, Bhutan is a very sensitive case, which you are saying. We have excellent relationship. We have an Indian military training team worth about 1,000 people stationed in Bhutan all the time, and it's been throughout. And we have the King 5 did NDC course in India for some years ago. So there is relationship. But the fact is that the Chinese are working assiduously to develop relationship, and they may be offering a quid pro quo, as media says, that the other northern two pockets in Bhutan which are contentious with China, the Chinese have been saying that okay, we will release the contention there and you sort out the Doklam for us, and we will say give A, B, C or D. And if they start doing all that, well, it will cause immense amount of tension. Despite the relationship we have, we are in a precarious situation. So when you add all these things together, and similarly you can say for Sri Lanka, which is now Hanbantota and the other areas that they have taken, and Maldives. So all these areas, if you put together, Chinese influence is increasing. Whether these countries have hearts matching with China is one issue. They may not be having best of hearts matching, but each country thinks of its own national interests to develop its own nation, and to do that, in case they can take more fundage from China to build their own nation, they won't mind it, in the longer run. What do we need to do? I think we made it a BBIN or something. We had many other associations. See, like similarly, you did mention Nepal. Nepal, we seem to have nearly lost out.
Yeah.
The present government is not exactly fond of us. And though we have a constituency, I am from Gurkhas, we have ex-servicemen there all over the place. They are fond of us. We meet them often. There are soldiers from Nepal working with us. But I think the Chinese have made great inroads into. If his train starts off from Lhasa and going to end tomorrow or sometime in Kathmandu, the linkages will be tremendous. And when we have our linkages, even the roads up to Nepal border are not the best. So I think our neighborhood policy needs a great amount of resilience and recasting. Anything, because if your neighbors are not, then we are not actually able to protect ourselves. So all these 3, 4, 5 neighbors that you've spoken about, we need to get serious.
As you said, as you discussed about the Nepal issue, recently the newly elected Prime Minister also made a statement saying that we always have an option of recalculating our relationship with India. We want good relations, but asked about Gurkhas serving in Indian Army, he said that this policy can also be rechecked and it can be revised. So, do you think that giving such bold statements, which are pretty serious in nature, because Gurkha and you being a Gurkha soldier yourself, do you think that it raises a serious eyebrows in New Delhi?
We have finite number of Gurkhas in Indian Army. Say I would offer say 40,000. Of the 40,000, say 24, 25 may belong to Nepal, and about 15,000 from Indian domicile, Dehradun, Dharamshala, or Darjeeling, or those areas, Siliguri. So, and they would be, I would say, if you put paramilitary forces all together, about 1.5 lakh pensioners in Nepal. If you have 1.5 lakh pensioners who are paid pension every month, and their families, so you have a constituency spread all across the Nepal of a substantive population, including their families and their parents and grandparents and the people serving in. The amount of money that is distributed could be as much as, say, 3,000 crores a year. I'm just giving a ballpark figure. And how much of money that we will be remitting from Nepal, from India to Nepal in all forms, even workers who are working there, about 1,000 crores a year. The economy of Nepalese with 3,000 crores actually being distributed as pensions across the counter every year, and you multiply it to Nepalese currency, which is another 60% extra, it makes tremendous amount of difference. For him to say he doesn't want the soldiers is one thing. The other part is that, how does the country stand on its feet? And it is also the relationships we have developed. The bondage that we have with the retirees there and the serving soldiers are actually very intricate. And when we go and meet them, those people come. We have a get together in here, Banaras, in 39 GTC, or 11 JRRC in Lucknow. Hundreds and thousands would come from Nepal when we meet once in a year, once in 2 years. So the relationship. If you feel that the constituency which is in love with us in Nepal, probably we are not utilizing it properly. for the government to say that they'll shun it away and we don't want it, it won't happen. I don't think it won't happen simply.
So that was basically a political statement.
I think, it's a question asked to him and he responded like that, we don't want it. But I don't think it will be simply done.
So one final question to you. Sir, even when the Doklam stand-up was going on, we saw that the Chinese incursions didn't only remain till Doklam. They carried it forward to the Uttaranchal border, then they later on moved on to the Ladakh region.
Yeah.
So they actually try to pinch you everywhere they can.
Yeah.
So how do you see that the distribution of Indian army on the eastern and the western front? It is a distributed army.
Yeah.
And the argument being put forward that we need to reduce our army and make it a more technologically more savvy and more updated army. Do you think which argument stands when you have got two adversaries on two borders?
Yeah.
Do we actually need to reduce the armed forces?
You put me into a trap. See, the fact is that if you say a substantial portion of the army is involved into insurgency, in fighting terrorism. I'm not saying China and Pakistan today.
Yeah.
If you see the valley floor,
Yeah.
there would be 30, 40 odd battalions working there. If you see the floor of the Brahmaputra valley and Brahmaputra river, there would be many people deployed there. Till the time you have this terrorism and insurgency there, because that eats up troops. It requires grids to be made, and so that's a frontier that we are fighting, which is not Pakistan and not China, but it's a frontier, all right, and it's eating up troops, and it's not stated as a primary responsibility, but it is a primary task for us today, especially in the valley. That's one part of it. Second is the people on the borders. Now, after Kargil happened, we would be very cautious to defend nearly every area against the Pakistanis, on the LC, because he's done a Kargil to us. He can do a Kargil tomorrow. There's nothing sanity involved here. So mountains which are ups and downs and rivers and nalas and forests and snow eat up people in defending. To defend the areas of desert or Punjab, it's not manpower intensive. But those areas, manpower intensive, it's the psychology of people being deployed there. Same thing goes to the line of actual control. We need intake of technology. We need to reorient the way the force is developed in the Indian Army. But at this juncture, till the time the things are eased off, either on the Pakistani side, on the Chinese side, it's impossible to reduce. There is this right argument about revenue budget and capital budget, where most money is going into salaries and pensions and not going for capital acquisitions. But unfortunate part of the story is that there is no relenting from infiltrations from across the Pakistan border, and Chinese coming in Chumar, in Depsang Belt, or Demchok, or Doklam, or Barahuti, as you referred, on the Uttarakhand-Tibet border, or in the lake. When Doklam was on, in Pagongso Lake, there was stone throwing something. How, if we have to dominate the areas which have been laid by the government of India, that this is where the LSC rests, we have to dominate physically by going there. And even going there, the Chinese are also there, and there would be a Gutham Gutha or something of this kind. Well, so be it. So the typology of operations done on the LC, LSC and on the hinterland are manpower intensive today. Tomorrow, if something happens and Kashmir changes its tone and it becomes pacified area, or the east becomes pacified, or we have an approachment with Chinese, we can certainly rethink it. But presently we are like that.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure.
Same.